Welcome to the Human Together podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Floyd. Human Together is a show that is centered on humanity to create understanding and appreciation for individuals and groups that are both informative and thought-provoking. Hello, everyone. Today was the last scheduled episode for Season 3 of the podcast. Part 2 of my interview with J.J. Arms is coming next week. But this week, I want to hit the pause button for a moment and address an issue that is on everyone's mind: the horrific death of George Floyd at the hands of a police officer and the aftermath that has ensued. The title for today's show is Racism is Obsolete. Why would I choose such an absurd title? A utopian statement that could be no further from the truth, yet one that stirs the soul and aims for higher truths. I love the United States and everything it stands for, but we continue to be stained by the yoke of racism. A fundamental mistake that we all as a people must address and overcome. Racism is not obsolete, but we as a united people must strive towards its obsolescence. As I've reflected over the unrest that has occurred over the last several weeks, I've looked back at my own life in ways that I've tried to address and stand up for racial injustice. One such situation that happened in my life came to mind. In the early 90s, I was playing in a rec basketball league. I was horrible, by the way, and I recall a game we played on April 4th. If you don't know the historical relevance of that day in history, it's the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. For the game, I decided to wear a homemade armband on my sleeve that had the letters MLK on it. I didn't wear it to create big fanfare, and honestly, I didn't share the meaning with anybody. It was my silent yet visible way to honor the legacy of Dr. King. I played the game to the best of my ability and went on my merry way. After the game, one of the refs came up to my mom, who was in attendance, and wanted to talk. He happened to be African American. He had noticed my MLK armband and joyfully told my mom, "You're raising this boy right." A conversation arose between my mom and the ref. She told him about my dad and her that had fostered a black child in the 60s, and how she always drank from the black fountain in the despicable days of segregation, and how she had invited Clara Looper to speak at her Sunday school class, all things that my mom was extremely proud of and willing to share. My mom and dad did those things not because they were popular things to do, but in their hearts they knew they were the right things to do. I don't share this story to be braggadocious, but to set the context of how my brothers and I were raised, to respect all people no matter their color of skin, disability, rich or poor. The value of human dignity is the foundation of how my family has always interacted with people. God willing, and the creek don't rise, I hope I've continued to live up to those values. I've had guests on this show in the past to put a spotlight on racial injustice. I have protested since the 80s, spurned by the injustice of apartheid in South Africa, and I've tried to educate my own children about civil rights. But have I done enough? Have any of us done enough? As judged by the recent murders of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, and on the list goes, I would have to say it's a resounding no. Let me center the conversation a bit. I'm not saying that police, by and large, are racist. I value what law enforcement does on a daily basis. They have the unenviable task of upholding the law and keeping citizens safe, and I'm thankful and honored for their presence every day. I would garner to think that a majority of white people are not racist, as attributed by the outrage and joining of Black Lives Matter's protest. However, systematic and institutional racism still exists. These are not easy fixes, but one that needs to be addressed. No matter your race, everyone needs to stand up for what is right. To put these ideas in perspective, I was reminded of the value of unity in a recent homily I heard from my parish priest, Father Arnold. He was addressing the recent racial injustices and opened his homily with a statement that struck a chord with me. Division is the devil's playground. He hit the nail right on the head. Racism is certainly the work of the devil. Keep this in mind. Whether you're religious or not, you can certainly recognize that evil is prevalent through racism. However, personally, I rely on my faith to guide my actions away from hatred. A prevalent appeal that states these truths is a prayer to St. Michael the Archangel. I'll read the prayer to you now. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. Racism is chief among all the evil spirits who prowl about the world. With this in your hearts and minds, appeal to lawmakers, public officials, and the population at large to end the structures that are emblematic of racial injustice. Create your own form of peaceful protest. Join in the streets, the Capitol steps, and beyond to shout a familiar phrase utilized by protesters to overthrow apartheid in South Africa. Amandla, Owetu. Amandla, Owetu. In English, power to the people. This phrase should be on the lips of individuals until change happens. We dream of a society in the United States in which racism is obsolete. We're not there yet. In the coming days and beyond, take a hard look at what you as an individual can do to advance justice for all people. Strive for the equality of all people and our continued journey to become human together.